Workshop 7. This workshop focuses on encouraging and correcting learners. And it starts off with a rather elaborate warmer. And you will need to prepare some cards or pieces of paper with these phrases: excellent, good, nearly, that's partly right, one small mistake, no, that's not right, try again, on different pieces of paper. Hand out these pieces of paper to in groups of 6, and the participants need to arrange themselves in order of correct to incorrect. So excellent is entirely correct for a difficult question. Good is correct for a less difficult question. Nearly, there's something slightly wrong with the answer. That's partly right. There's something correct, but one small mistake. Again, that's got an error in it. And finally, no, that's not right. Try again. It's completely wrong. So get them to make a line of 6 with descending order of praise or correctness. You then drill these expressions, so you model and get the participants to repeat. Excellent, excellent. That's partly right. That's partly right. And then you will play the role of a learner. There are some suggested phrases that you can use in the trainer's book. So if you say, trees are green, then a participant playing the role of the teacher might say, good. Or perhaps the teacher would say, well, that's partly true. They're not only green. There are other colors. You say 17 plus 15 is 31, and a participant will say, no, that's not right. Try again, etc. So there are a lot of examples that you can use to prompt individual participants to use these phrases. Stage 2, as always, is the session overview. So you will talk the participants through the aims of this session, and then focus them on the words, phrases in the box. Check their understanding. So what does encourage mean? Can somebody explain? And then when you are confident that they all know the meaning of these words and phrases, ask them to decide who does these things. So who encourages? Is it the teacher, the learner, or both? Who checks work? Is it the teacher, the learner, or both? So they can do that individually and check it in pairs. And then they can discuss these questions in groups. So why is it important to praise and encourage? What is an error? How do you correct learners? Get them to discuss those in groups, and you can go around, monitor, listen to what the participants are saying. Stage 3, listening. So they're going to listen to dialogues from subject lessons. Before you play the listening text, tell them that their task is to guess which subjects the recordings come from. So what is it? Maths? Is it geography, science, etc.? So they then listen and note the subjects. you can then compare their answers, and in the second listening, they are going to note down the ways that the teachers encourage and correct. So they'll write the actual phrases the teachers use in the left-hand column, and afterwards they can then decide if these are good or bad ways of encouraging or correcting. And then to round off this stage, in groups, they will discuss what is good, what is not so good about each of the different ways of encouraging or correcting. Finally, there is a matching exercise. So in section D, here are some expressions. Match them to a way of correcting from section B. So, no, let me give you a clue. A, go back up to section B, and they need to match it to these. Stage 4. So in pairs, they're going to play the name game. It's very simple. The one person has to think of as many countries as they can, beginning with a particular letter. So in pairs, A and B. A plays the role of the teacher and B plays the role of the student. A says, now list as many countries as you can, beginning with the letter M. The student says Mozambique, Morocco, and the teacher uses the expressions. So say, yes, go on, take your time, etc. At some point, the B will run out of ideas and the teacher will say, come on, try, it's okay. So practicing these expressions. Stage 5. So in pairs, you will ask the participants to write simple maths questions using the phrases in the box. So plus, minus, times, divided by. So they need to write, imagine, invent some maths questions. The example is there. What is 25 divided by 5? Simple maths questions. Okay, so once these pairs, in pairs, they have written their questions. Now you're going to make new groups of 3. You're going to split the pairs so they're not together. So 3 people come together from different pairs. That means each of those is bringing their own 4 questions. So they have 12 different maths questions. They then role play. One participant is teacher, asks the questions, and the other 2 participants play the roles of students, and they deliberately get some answers wrong so that the teacher can practice the expressions. Stage 6. Now here we're talking about language correction, not about subject. So we're not talking about correcting maths errors or science errors. We're talking about English language. And the question is, when do we correct? So get the participants individually to look at the phrases in the first column and then say if they agree or partly. So they should mark whether they agree or disagree. And put them into groups and groups discuss their opinions. There are no correct answers to this. Stage 7, delayed error correction. So this is when you don't correct an error immediately when you hear it, but you come back later to correct an error. So in pairs, look at the phrase on the left there is an error in each of these phrases. In pairs, they should correct the errors. And then they match the error to the type of error. So it's a liquid red. Correct should be it's a red liquid. And the type of error is a word order error. Now, section B of this stage, on the left of that table is a function. So introducing an error correction stage is a function. Ask the participants to think of the exact language that they would use to do that. So focusing learners on the board is the function. What exactly would you say? Probably everybody look at the board. So that's what they need to do, write down the exact language they would use to do these functions. Next, ask them to read the script from the lesson, which you can see here, and find more expressions for the functions above. So now let's look at some language points, is introducing an error correction stage. And finally, ask participants individually to think of 3 language errors their learners often make and note them down. Then